And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lockern, along with you on this Friday morning. A 12-game Major League Baseball slate is upon us. Lots of games to get through, lots of players to get through. But Dave, on Thursday night, I sat through a talent show for my daughter's elementary school. What'd you do on Thursday night?
Honestly, I didn't think anyone's day could get worse than mine.
But there it is.
There it is.
But there it is. Honestly, I'm very proud of my daughter. They did
of course,
well,
yeah,
but it is still the moment. But listen, we probably romanticize our own childhoods and we think back to, back in my day, talent shows were actually talent. There were a bunch of kids who went out on stage and just did the floss. Did that.
Oh God. That's
Fortnite dances.
I would rather you go up there and not say a word and just stand still for 15 minutes than me have to watch another kid trying to floss.
And
I can't stand it.
The right phrase, trying to floss. And then there were
or humans in general, adults. I don't care who you are. That floss thing, man. I don't know why, Dan, but it drives me nuts. I despise it. Hopefully that wasn't your daughter's talent.
Oh, no, they do Irish step dance. My oldest sang in the middle.
She actually has a talent.
Yeah, some.
I would have booed those other kids.
You brought tomatoes with you. Just throw tomatoes. There were other kids.
It's not like I look back and say, "Oh, in my days." In certain things, I do. I mean, kids are getting soft, but I can assure you that my parents would have been bored to death at one of my talent shows as well. At that age, it would have been pretty rough for anybody.
And I think we didn't stay for the second act, which is the older kids. It's 2 acts. It lasts like 3 hours. But there were two notes that I did want to pass on. One, a group of 3, probably third or second graders, did like football drills where one kid just threw the ball and the other 2 pretended. Like when you're a kid, you would dive into the pool catching the football. That's what they did onto a gymnastics mat. So that was their talent.
Did they catch any?
No, that was the best part.
Of course. And
then this was amazing, honestly, and I applaud these kids. 3 kids came out with a pool cover, like that looked like a pool. Like there were other people shaking it to make it look like a pool. They had the water caps on, the whole thing. They pretended they were doing synchronized swimming behind it. So they stood up and did this whole minute 20 thing as if they were in a 1930s black and white film doing synchronized swimming. That's dedication. That I said, you know what? I will applaud that. I appreciate you or the parents thinking through this and making their kids do it, whatever it was.
Which one of the parents?
Exactly.
Oh God. All I wanted to do as a child as a kid was synchronized swimming. Jimmy, put on your bathing suit.
I was going to say, Johnny, it's time to put on this.
Mom. No moms here. We're going swimming. That's how I see it.
Oh man! All right, we're gonna talk about a 12.
Put on some classical music.
Oh, totally. It was. You know it exactly.
Just start running drills with your 6-year-old.
They're ready to go. We have a 12-game slate here. That. How have you felt about DraftKings pricing?
It's way better now. The first couple of weeks it was rough. I didn't think it was as bad as everyone. Not everybody. Some people were saying it was really tough to make lineups. It was definitely tough, but not impossible. I definitely like that they've settled it down a little bit at least. I think where they're at now is fine. You still want it to be sharp, but there's no reason. Here, think of it this way. You want it to be sharp, but there's still zero reason Chris Davis should be $4,000.
He is now he was for 53 now,
Monday
right?
On Monday or Tuesday. That's just, you can't be having that.
Chris Davis 0 for 53 on the season.
Did he go hitless again yesterday?
Yeah.
I forgot to even check.
Do you know what he's doing, though?
What's that?
He's trusting the process.
Is that what he said?
That is what he said.
Poor guy. I actually feel for him. I get it. He's making a lot of money and such, but man, that's just terrible.
Lots to get through here. So we're going to go position by position as we always do. Don't forget, Dave has your deep dive Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You need to be a sub of Awesemo.com to see that. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, EARLYBIRD, one word, as your promo code gets you 50% off your first month, and then you pay the rest of the way from there. Don't forget that also gets us a nice little check mark with the bosses. That's nice too, right? It makes us look good. But beyond that, don't forget on YouTube, subscribe, like this video, leave a comment. Always love hearing from everybody, good and bad. Good and bad. I know Dave doesn't like the bad, but I'll take the bad.
I mean, look, if you're gonna ask me which I prefer, yeah, I would like a nice comment, but either or.
People did enjoy your pregnant pause about I'm not high the other day, so that was timely. And we have, of course, over on iTunes, subscribe and leave a comment, leave a rating. Always appreciate that. But we have these 12 games to get through. I like this slate at first glance. Now, come 7 p.m. tomorrow night, I will probably be bitching about it and saying that it's the worst slate ever. But a first glance across where we have games happening, we have some pitcher sparks mixed in with some hitter sparks. We have some pitchers in good spots at price points that feel pretty comfortable. To your point, we seem to see a little bit of a thawing of pricing over on DraftKings. We do have a potential or probable opener in Rin Stanek, as noted over on DraftKings with the PO label rather than the P. I assume Yarborough will be his backup.
They've changed it again?
Yeah, it's now PO.
Because before, wait, do they have PLR too?
No. Well, I haven't looked up. I assume it's Yarborough,
right? Yeah, I was thinking they might have both, but they don't. They just have probable opener. I guess they thought it was a little bit risky putting probable long reliever. At least with opener, they're basically warning you just not to play him. That's what they're doing.
Ryan Yarborough is 7,800 on this slate. I haven't seen to confirm that he is, in fact, the next man up, but these two are typically the tandem when they go out there. So Yarborough is 7,800 in this game against Toronto in Rogers Center. So let's talk quickly here. Top end of pitcher. You have Carrasco against Kansas City at 11K. Patrick Corbin in a pretty solid matchup at 10-1 against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Paddock up to 9,700 against Arizona. Haven't looked yet, and I don't know if we'd have it this early on, whether or not the roof will be open in Arizona here. I know early on in the season they try to open it as often as possible. I know it was 95 degrees at first pitch the other day when they had the roof open. That needs to be something that people take into consideration. You have J.A. Happ against the White Sox. Eduardo Rodriguez in as good a spot as you can get against the Baltimore Orioles. I wonder if we're going to start seeing pitchers priced up even more against Baltimore as the season rolls on, especially if Chris Davis is in the lineup. Jake Arrieta, prime spot against Miami in a pitcher's park. We can roll on name by name here, but want to get your top-end thoughts first. Corbin against Pittsburgh, I'm a big fan here of his upside. I just know that Corbin also struggles with walks. He hasn't so far this year. It's been a problem for him in the past. K-minus walk ratio can suffer, can put up some big walk numbers at time. He does have a prime matchup in my eyes here at 10-1. Carrasco against Kansas City, 11K, and then Paddock at 9,700. Mentioned some other guys mixed in. Who are some of your favorite, let's say 8K and above on DraftKings?
All right. Well, Carlos Carrasco. Let's start with is Carrasco? Yeah, he is on this. I wanted to make sure we didn't have any of these early ones.
Yep.
But Carrasco had a brutal first start, and then his second start was great. He's actually been someone. This season hasn't been the case, but he has been better away from home. And I always say this: I'm very careful about home road splits. But with somebody like him and Barrios, they've been pretty wild with those splits, and we've seen Carrasco for years now just be markedly better away from home. I don't know what it is, but it's something that we've seen, and it's something that's at least somewhat tangible. You got him going up against the Kansas City Royals. They have some speed, and Jorge Soler has some pop, but really this is just a speed team where there's not a ton of power. And there's a decent amount of strikeouts. It's also going to be way colder at Kauffman than it has been. So I definitely like Carrasco here. I don't think you have to pay for him, but I have no issues with him. My guess because we've seen ownership pretty wild on guys just because of a matchup or because of a price. My guess is Jake Arrieta probably carries decent ownership into this slate.
Agreed.
Yeah, I really have no interest at all. I mean, he has a 4.4% swinging strike rate to start the season, and I've watched both of his starts. There is just no life on these pitches. He said that he was healthier and he had fixed his arm slot that they figured out over the offseason and all that good stuff, but I'm not seeing it yet, Dan, and until I do, I'm backing off. It wasn't on him last year either, but, you would think maybe if Arrieta could get back to half of what he was before,
yep,
and you'd definitely be interested in giving him a look. But so I was looking at this and I said, all right, let me see what his whiff rate is. Okay. But what I want to really see is I want to see what his raw whiff counts are. So like how many pitches so he's thrown, let's see, 140, 174. He's thrown like I'm just doing the math. I'm going to say about 180 pitches. Okay. About 180 pitches. And his raw whiff counts, he has 6 whiffs on the sinker, which you don't expect that to get a lot there, 2 on the changeup, and 1 on the slider. So he has thrown the changeup 30 times, the slider 16 times. So 3 total whiffs on 16 pitches and 6 on 110 sinkers. He's just not missing any bats whatsoever. On the curveball, he does not have a single whiff on 18 curveballs. You've got to look at this, Dan, and ask yourself what's going to give. He's either going to start getting hammered, and he gave up 2 monster back-to-back home runs against Minnesota and then settled down because he does a good job of getting ground balls. Like pitch placement with Arrieta is generally quite good, but a 3.5 run total for Miami. They're at Marlins Park. All of it looks good, but what's it worth if you're getting 6 one-run innings with 2 strikeouts? I think Arrieta should actually be cheaper than that just because we've gotten no form of strikeouts whatsoever. And that's where I stand on him right now.
Yep, and I think that is more than reasonable. Somebody that I think, for me, will be heavily dictated by ownership. By if he's in any sort of higher end ownership, I just don't see the upside to him. It's a good matchup, good park. Vegas is sort of showing us some love here, but I haven't seen a ton from him on the year that says that he could have a dominant performance here at 8K plus. So I'll stay away if he's double-digit owned. On the year, what's he at? He's at 11.2% K- walk, a xFIP of 408. He just hasn't been all that dynamic. And so I'll stay away if I can find the right pairing elsewhere. Eduardo Rodriguez has not shown us anything worth anything, to be honest, to start the year. But this Baltimore Orioles offense has clearly struggled, and I joke about Chris Davis, but overall, it's an offense that clearly was made for tanking, was made for a bad season, to be quite honest. And they may not necessarily strike out a ton, but there's not a ton of talent here that I'm overly afraid of. Do you see anything with Rodriguez that convinces you that this could be an upside spot, or is this simply another stalemate where a bad offense against a bad pitcher is not worth picking on?
Yeah, I mean, he's a heavy favorite, so that's good, I guess. Sub 4 total for Baltimore. But you're right. We really haven't seen a whole lot from Rodriguez. It's at a righty-friendly park, which isn't great. And he's now, to be fair, he's faced Oakland and Seattle, 2 teams that are just mashing to start the season. If there was ever a bounce-back spot, it would be this. But you're not getting a discount on him, right? Like, you're really not getting a discount here. I think I'd rather go to Chris Paddock.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, he threw 89 pitches and didn't get through the 4th last game. That was against St. Louis, though. They will grind you down. 5 one-run innings, 7 Ks, 79 pitches against San Francisco. I mean, I'm assuming that he's going to be allowed to throw 90 plus pitches here. I don't think that'll be an issue. So he's interesting to me. J.A. Happ against the White Sox. There's still going to be a decent amount of strikeouts here. He hasn't looked great to start the year, but man, a lot of good pitchers have not looked good to start the year, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
seriously, a lot of these guys have not looked great. Corbin's been okay. He hasn't been great. He allowed 3 home runs last game, but he struck out 9. You know what? You'll take it. He didn't. 3 home runs, all of them solo shots, 9 Ks. I'll take that start. I don't have an issue with it. Against Pittsburgh, yeah, it's fine. I don't love him, though, because this is a lineup, again, where you're not going to get a ton of strikeouts. My guess is last season, let me just take a quick look here. Since the start of last season, we'll go since the start of last season. Against lefties, the Pirates were striking out at 21%. So I guess higher than they did against righties, but still not very high. And that's the active roster that they have now without pitchers, of course. So, there will be an extra strikeout or 2 in there for pitchers, but, still Corbin is not that cheap. Pitching I do like Carrasco. Nothing stands out a crazy amount up top. Urias is, and I'll never get it. I've given up. It's one of those.
Urias.
What?
Say it like a true American. Urias.
Yeah, right.
Urias.
Let me just get to the bottom of this. So,
baseball reference? Are we doing it? Urias, right?
What?
Oh, it's Urias.
Urias, yes.
Yeah. Are you Urias here, Dave? See, it just works so perfectly.
It did not work. It did not work.
Oh, that's so good.
He's got nasty stuff. He's facing Milwaukee. The good thing here is that you'll have the platoon advantage over Yelich, over Shaw, over Moustakas, but you won't have it. You won't have the platoon advantage over Kane and Braun and a few guys that hit righties really well, or lefties really well.
Yep.
A few righties that hit lefties really well. So, I think there's tournament appeal there, but just knowing that he's not going to throw 80 pitches at that price point, how do you get there? Right? Like, how do you get there against a pretty good team nonetheless? That to me is pretty hard to do. And then you have Corbin Burns, who does have 18 strikeouts over his first 2 games, but he's been a run and a home run. He's allowed 6 home runs in 2 starts. You're going up against the Dodgers, just a power-laden offense. I don't have faith in him to get that done. Zach Wheeler's against Atlanta. Let's talk about some good pitchers that have looked terrible. He's one of them, right? Zach Wheeler, I'm not saying he is, and I think he will turn it around, but I don't want to take that gamble against an Atlanta team that doesn't strike out. I'd much rather run guys out. Like Colin McHugh, for example, I loved him the other day because, yes, it's a tough matchup against the Yankees, but there's a lot of strikeouts there.
Yep.
Judge, Voit, Stanton, or not Stanton, I'm sorry, Bird. Who else? Romine, wasn't Romine? Just so many of them, Dan. Like so many strikeouts. And I'm definitely forgetting a few guys that strike out at a high clip. Frazier was another one. Like just a ton of strikeouts. So he gave up a few runs and he struck out 9 or 10 batters. Those are the type of guys I'm looking for. You want to see that upside there. So looking at this mid-range above 8K, I don't see anything that really stands out.
No, I'm with you there, and I think that Urias and Arrieta and Burns and Wheeler all have upside in the sense that there are paths forward. And one of the things that I know you've looked at, but I know Adam and Josh do a little bit more with their projections, is the sort of percentage of potential outcome, right? The idea of probability of how often will this happen, the ceiling game, the floor game, and the median average the median of what could happen. It feels like we're in a lot of low-end probability of the ceiling game happening here for these pitchers.
Right,
and so,
right, you don't necessarily, the projections are nice for that, but for some of these guys, like, you don't need to know that the likelihood of Zach Wheeler racking up 10 Ks and having a 30 fantasy point game, you don't need to know it's low, or you don't need projections to know that that's low. Yeah.
Yep, exactly right. So
Drew Pomerantz is interesting though.
It's exactly where I was going next. It's a game where AT&T Oracle Park. That's going to really piss me off all year.
I know.
It's the same with the Chargers. They're still the San Diego Chargers, as far as I'm concerned.
I got that wrong. Not this previous season, but the year before that. Every time I spoke of them.
All the time. So Oracle Park here
it makes you a true fan. You know what I mean? Like it's ingrained in you.
There's some history. Exactly. It's not fly by night.
Right.
You have Pomerantz.
Fly by night.
It's a good phrase. I like it. Pomerantz is not necessarily a great pitcher. He's been one of those guys who's been around the league long enough. He was a top prospect. It now feels like probably 8 or 9 years ago, to be quite honest. Bounced around from team to team, ended up with the Red Sox, had some upside. We see some upside here with the San Francisco Giants because of the park. But this is a Colorado team we point out many times over that struggles away from Coors Field. You can see the stark contrast in WOBA and ISO and slugging percentage, whatever number you want to look at. And as a team and a venue that suppresses power and suppresses the key ingredient to a lot of what Colorado does. I don't love Drew Pomerantz as a pitcher. Like, he's somebody that I struggle to get right, somebody that at 8,100 still feels a tad bit expensive, but this does look like all signs pointing to an upside potential game. You have him, you have Trevor Williams, and then you have our good buddy, Mr. Thornton, Trent Thornton, with his spin rate and his K-minus walk ratio to start the year, and get to match up with Tampa Bay in Toronto in the Rogers Center. I at least have to look deeper into what he could offer here. What do you got in this 8,100 down to, let's say, 7K range? So that includes Keller and Alcantara and Wright, Weaver, Fires, Thornton, and Williams, along with Drew Pomerantz.
All right. I think these are a good group of names you threw out there. And I will say, proud to say, I jumped on Thornton pretty early here.
Yep.
So, sometimes when you find stuff like that, it's hard to get away from him, right? I'll get to him in a second. Let me talk about Pomerantz real quick. You know who his comp is? Rich Hill.
Okay.
Well, no. Here's why. The high-low approach, the high-rising fastball, and the break your ankle, super looping curveball. Different. Their pitches look different, but the way, like the 2-pitch fastball curveball usage is exactly what makes them good when they're good. So I'm not saying put them next to each other and and they look the same. I think look at their pitch mix and how they get guys out, and pretty similar. When Pomerantz has the fastball working, when it has that good rise on it, and he's always had a pretty solid spin rate on his curveball. When he does, he's good. Also interesting, Dan. Last year, his velocity was at 89, less than 90 miles per hour. He came out of the gate this year at 92 miles per hour. That's good to see. It's not anything crazy, but it's encouraging. And, once again, four-seamer, he's using 40% of the time, 46% of the time on the curveball. So there you've got almost 90% of your pitch mix. And the other is like 10% on the sinker, right? Like that's what he does. And go look at Rich Hill's pitches. You'll see something very similar. But the curveball, you want to see whiffs there. You want to see him missing bats. I think against this Colorado team in San Francisco is a pretty easy way to get some strikeouts. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Pomerantz is chalky. So we'll see what the projected ownership looks like. I wouldn't be surprised if Pomerantz is chalky. If he is, then I have no problem just getting away from that. If not, if nobody's looking towards Pomerantz, then I'll happily get some exposure to him, because you don't need to be great here. 6 one-run innings with 7 Ks, 8 Ks would be enough given the other pitchers on this slate. And I actually do think there's a decent ceiling for Pomerantz in this matchup.
Well, it was Derek Holland the other day, and Holland's going to continue to be somebody that we roll with as long as he's reasonably priced because of the park and because of the upside for 5 to 8 strikeouts. I think he had 9 the other night, but
Yep.
that's sort of that frame of mind we need to have as long as they're reasonably priced. 8,100 is probably the top end for me for Pomeranz, unless I'm seeing something vastly different from him.
Agree.
But that's where I probably lean. I agree with you. I think this is where the bread's going to be buttered, whatever terrible cliche you want to use for our lineup construction between Pomeranz down to it's a Made Wiley day. I didn't even notice, but
no.
Yep, there he is against Seattle of all teams. But you have Wade Miley and Wade LeBlanc on the same. They're facing each other. Oh man, that's fantastic.
How has Mike Fiers made 4 starts already?
Japan.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But
Japan,
wait,
man.
this is his 5th.
Yeah.
Like, you would think this would be his 4th, not his 5th.
Yeah, he's faced Seattle, and then he's right. He is.
Well, he was the opening day pitcher too. Well, the
Japan opening
day pitcher. By the way, Rich Hill, I mentioned that Pomeranz, 50% total fastball if you include the 2-seamer, 40% curveball. Rich Hill, 50% fastball, 40% curveball. So
what's his blister to pitch ratio though?
Oh God, high.
Just piss on your hands, man. Like, isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Do something.
Isn't that what, like, I mean, Jorge Posada used to say he peed on his hands so he didn't wear batting gloves when he batted. Come on.
Was he serious about that?
I mean, I took the man at his word during the interview that I saw, but I didn't get a chance to follow up with it. Jorge, quick follow up.
So
do you in
fact
piss on your hands, or is that just
about that piss hand?
Is that just a story you tell the kids?
Yeah.
You have Trevor Williams here against Washington. Williams has had a very solid start and a mediocre start. The thing you'd like to see is he's not walking anybody, really. It's 9-1 Cato walk ratio at present. He has given up just 1 home run on the year as well. The game against Cincinnati was a lot of BABIP's probably trying to explain away too much of it to luck, but wasn't a game that necessarily saw anything that stood out as why he was the losing pitcher or on the wrong end of that. Washington's lineup clearly has power. You have Soto, you have Robles, and you have Anthony Rendon, who's knocking the cover off the ball. 8K, I think he's at least a reasonable play. I want to hear your thoughts, though, on Trent Thornton. I know you were big on his spin rate. I know you were big on some upside a couple of starts ago. This is a Tampa Bay team that is, I still think, first in the AL East, has shown the same sort of gumption they had last year in getting the wins they did, 90 in the AL East last year. Do you see this as a plus matchup still? Or is this a Tampa Bay team we need to sort of recalibrate how we go about it and figure out exactly what the matchups are?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a plus matchup, but I don't think it's one that you totally stay away from either, right? There's a difference there between, a matchup that you're scared of and a matchup that you say, all right, could be better, could be worse. Let's just take a look for a second. The sample isn't large enough, but we need to look at something, right? So we'll just take the 2019 splits here against righties for the Rays and look at their rates here. Get a quick look because most of these are going to have like 300 to 400 plate appearances against righties now. So the Rays are 9th in K rate at 25%. We like that. Walk rate 8.7%. 20th in the league. Let's see. They are 324 WOBA. That sits at 14th, which makes sense. They seem to be a pretty middle of the road team that will have a decent amount of strikeouts. Now, another thing, though, they will steal a lot of bases. They've stolen the second most bases against righties this year. I don't necessarily know if Trent Thornton is strong or not when it comes to holding runners, but I guess we'll find out. So I still think there's upside here, and that's what you're looking for, right? You're looking for upside. He's allowed 1 home run and 2 earned runs in all 3. No, you know what? I'm sorry. I was looking at that wrong. I was looking at his averages, but he allowed 1 home run on the season, 2 earned runs in his last start. In the first start he didn't allow any runs. He threw 92 pitches last time out, so you have to think that he's allowed to go pretty deep into this one. And the thing I like about guys like Thornton, when you got that curveball with the ridiculous spin rate and everything, what's nice is it seems like it takes a little while for the league to catch on.
Yep.
So we see a lot of these pitchers coming over from Asia, from Japan or Korea, and it's like immediately they have wild success, and then that success weans. We've seen that a lot, right? I have my theories on that too. I don't want to take up too much time, so I won't get into it. But he has a 21% whiff rate on his curveball so far. Not whiff per swing, whiff rate. So it's 58% whiff per swing. He has thrown the curveball 33 times, Dan, and he has gotten on 33 curveballs 7 swings and misses. That's a really good mark, really strong mark. And I think that pitch continues to get him a lot of strikeouts. And I'm going to run him out there. I won't say confidently, but I mean, are you any less confident in him than you would be in Erod or Pomerantz or Arrieta? Like, this is what I talked to Josh about this on the strategy show, saying I wasn't saying we know more than Vegas when it comes to the odds, like the implied totals, but a 4.5 implied total doesn't mean you can't play a guy. It means they could get blown up, but we're all, the strikeouts matter most. If you go 6 and allow 2 and strike out 10, that's better than Jake Arrieta allowing only 2 runs or 1 run and striking out 2 across 7. Strikeouts are king. So yeah, I'm not worried about the fact that they've got what's their total here? Like 4.5 or something, 4.5. Yeah. I'm not too concerned about that. Trevor Williams, I don't feel necessary to go there. I would rather go with the K upside and Thornton at actually a cheaper price on DraftKings. Mike Fiers and Globe Life, no thank you. I will really like a lot of K-heavy lefties or strikeout upside lefties against Texas. That's why Robbie Ray was such a good play, because even if they want to run out righties, they have no power bats from the right side, or at least very few, right? Okay, Luke Weaver against San Diego. Man, I don't know what to say about Luke Weaver. He's run into a rough patch over the past season or two, and that's a spot where I probably don't get to, but could actually see him having some ownership. Alcantara against Philly, no thank you. I just don't believe in his strikeout stuff. We saw 0 strikeouts against Atlanta. That's really tough to get to. I want to throw one guy at you, and then I'll let you close out the position if there's anyone here that you like at the bottom. Probably will surprise you, but Lucas Giolito, if you're looking for somebody,
sure.
If you're looking for someone that is obviously a high-risk pitcher, but also is going to be negligibly, is that a word? I don't think so.
No, you nailed it.
Negligibly owned? Well, yeah. I think that'll be Giolito. Now, here's the things I like about him. When he first came as into the league, when he first began starting, right, as a starting pitcher, things did not look good. Actually, we were stacking against him on the regular, but he mixes in a curve, a slider, and a changeup, right? And this year, here's something I love. Last year, he threw 20% two-seamer, 11% the year before. This year, he has not thrown one two-seamer.
Yeah, no sinkers, no two-seamer. Yep.
I love that. Okay,
yep.
I love that, because what it means is he's actually throwing 6% more changeup and more four-seamer. Give me that all day long.
If you're sinker, if you're two-seamer, and depending on how you throw it, there's the run and there's the dip. And right. I'm not trying to pretend I'm a pitching coach, but if your two-seamer is more of a split finger, more of a sinker, and you don't have total command of it, you need to get rid of it in today's baseball. Like you need to. And it's good to see he's made that adjustment.
Or if you have one, like there are some guys out there that have done it, that have had a really good career. Okay. Relying on the two-seamer. I'll give you an example of somebody. I won't say a great career, but definitely got a ton of ground ball outs and limited. Tim Hudson for a while.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah, but my argument there would be that Hudson was ahead of the launch angle craze. Like Hudson got.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's what I think the difference is.
Sure. The point anyway I'm getting at, it's irrelevant to anyone else, is that if you're using that pitch to get ground ball double plays, with runners on base, I think it's a useful pitch to have.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Right. But not when the bases are empty. And Especially, here's the thing, especially when you've got great strikeout stuff. You see these guys, like we've seen, Sale did it before, but you pitch to contact with a runner on base. If you can K the guy, do it. If you've got the stuff, do it. Right now, we're not long into the season. I totally understand that, but bear with me here. Lucas Giolito in 2 starts has a 22% whiff rate on his changeup and a 22% whiff rate on his slider. Last year, 17 and 17%. Those are still really good marks. Lucas Giolito can get you going down swinging. And if you look at the Yankees, since the start of last season, if you want to take since the start of 2018, against the slider and against the changeup, they have been average or below average. We know that a lot of these guys will swing out of their shoes when it comes to these pitches. I think Giolito is a good tournament play, but obviously comes with a lot of risk, and that needs to be said.
If I'm with you, and I think this is a Yankee lineup that with Sanchez and Frazier and others, there are strikeouts to be had. It just really makes me wish that Stanton was in the lineup. Because this is the sort of game where Stanton goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Because
Dan, do you even need him? Let me just read.
You don't need him. No. But
let me read off the lineup from Wednesday and just get your take on it. Okay, you had Gardner, Judge, Voit, Torres, Bird, LeMahieu, Frazier, Romine, and Wade.
Totally.
Outside of Gardner and LeMahieu, and I guess to some extent Gleyber Torres, you have a boatload of Ks in this lineup.
Yep.
A lot of righties as well, which Giolito's slider is obviously going to have better results against, right? I think this is, he's throwing the slider this year early on, but we can use last year if we want to. 24% of the time against righties, and he's getting a ton of swings and misses. He does actually have the arsenal to set them down swinging, but also is the type of guy that could implode.
Yeah, let's not forget that Giolito was the top, a top 10, if not the top prospect in Major League Baseball 4 years ago.
Is that right? Was he one of? He
was the Washington Nationals' next big thing, and
I didn't know he was that high up.
Yeah, he was one of the top prospects in baseball, and they traded him for Adam Eaton, and there was a big uproar about them trading Giolito for Eaton. That Giolito was part of that deal, and that they gave him up. Now,
crazy, huh? It's
proven to be a draw on both sides because Eaton's been injured and Giolito hasn't panned out. But this is a guy who, again, it doesn't pan out for baseball. A lot of the times these can't miss prospects do miss, but there's typically
that
exactly.
And he's made what, like 60 total starts for his career or something.
If it's even that high, I'd be surprised if that might be right.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's around 60. But dude, just look at his game logs from going back to last year. His last couple starts were brutal, but there were some bright spots in there where you look at him like 6 1/3, 8 Ks, 1 run, 7 1-run innings, 6 Ks, 7 Ks, 7 Ks, 6. Like he had 6 or more strikeouts in 7 straight starts towards the end of last season. He's going to get rocked at times, but Lucas Giolito, at least we know, can get strikeouts. And when we're going that cheap, the only thing we're looking for is strikeouts, right? And obviously not to get torched, but that, comes with the territory. We're hoping that they get strikeouts and limit runs to a reasonable number.
Yeah, and looking back, Giolito was top 5 in 2015, 2016 in prospect lists for the Nationals. Wow. So he's up there. And again, he's 24. And not to say that makes a difference for DFS. Like, I don't want to conflate those two different things as what matters, but it's a guy who has clearly in his career have talent, had a reason to be one of these top prospects. Can scouts get it wrong? Absolutely. Can statistics get it wrong? Absolutely. But this is a spot where I agree. This is between him and Brad Keller. Those are the last two people I want to talk about as far as a pitching perspective stands out. I can talk about some of these other names, Miley, LeBlanc, and we can maybe make a case around some upside somewhere, but Giolito stood out, and Brad Keller stands out a bit for me here. And I don't think Brad Keller is an ace by any standards. I think he's the ace of the Royals because of what they've done to their roster. But I do think this Cleveland Indians lineup is one that I'll continue to try to exploit as long as they're not running out a major league lineup. And the bottom half of this lineup is still crap. And I get that there's a lot of injuries, and I get that they also didn't make a lot of moves. But Keller here against an Indians lineup that doesn't have a ton going for it at a lower price point in a park that is sort of neutral. Kauffman is a bigger park that tends to play well to fly balls. At 7,100, I'd be happy to go Keller and Giolito and play every effing bat I want, right? Like, and hope for the upside of the two, one against bad offense and second one against a high strikeout offense, and see what happens. So
people are, I'm sure we'll get comments about like, oh, you're crazy for talking about Giolito. Yankees have a 5.8 total on the slate, and they do, by the way, and it's at Yankee Stadium. But just understand that with baseball, getting a cheap pitcher that can rack up strikeouts, give you 7, 8, 9 strikeouts at that price against what is likely to be a chalk offense, a chalk stack in the Yankees, can take you so much further than like one low-owned player in basketball, because you're not just getting someone that's low-owned, but you're getting leverage against all of those Yankee
everybody
stacks,
else, yeah.
right? If it does, you can do both. Play a bunch of Yankee stacks and then get some Giolito in there. But we're really not just throwing out nonsense here. In baseball, when it comes to GPPs, these are the risks that can pay off in a big way, and they can also ruin your night. But there's a lot of potential to have really great results at this cheap of a price point. There's no question the Yankees are going to be super high, super chalk at 5.8 total at Yankee Stadium. I just don't see how they wouldn't be.
I will repeat what I've said a couple of times here on this podcast. Jay Walker, who was a coworker of ours at FanVice, now has moved on to other work, and he's really enjoying his life, and bless him. I honestly very happy for Jay. But Jay did a lot of work around his Power Report, which was StatCast sort of driven. But his line always about NFL, about NBA, about Major League Baseball was find the games where you think Vegas is wrong, or at least could be wrong, could have that upside. And I think this Yankee game, that 5.8, it could be wrong. And not to say that's going to be wrong. Again, the probability of it all. It's not going to be wrong 100% of the time. But Giolito has upside here. And to Dave's point, when you get upside against a high-owned stack, just think of the variability of if you get it right, all the people who own the Yankee stack, all those 30, 35% owned players versus your low-owned pitcher, the standings invert very quickly. And that change happens very quickly.
Yeah, no question. And again, it's not like you're recommending you're not sitting here recommending Andrew Cashner as a low-owned pitcher.
Oh, I will totally recommend Andrew Cashner based off Derek Carty's high recommendation. No, it's not Derek Carty. I have a long-standing fun thing I do on Twitter of anytime Cashner pitches well, tagging Carty because of just fun for me. It just became a thing. And to the point where when I saw Carty last at the Tout Wars draft, he introduced me to everyone as this is the biggest Andrew Cashner apologist in the world. And I then had
a good way to be introduced.
And I explained to everyone, I was like, oh, no, it's not me. It's Derek. He's just trying to cover for themselves. Where by the end of the night, I had people convinced that Carty secretly loves Andrew Cashner. So I'm a big fan of running that narrative out there as often as I can.
That's all I got for pitching, by the way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. There's no one cheap end that I feel overly big on. I think the Red Sox should have an absolute field day with Hess here. Smiley, not a big fan of. LeBlanc, Miley, not in on. Yeah, so I think it's worth to go to positions. We'll run through this quickly. Remember, early first look, trying to understand stacks and where the highest upside is. Dave has your deep dive. He also has the deeper dive with Adam, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Adam's traveling again, I think. I'm covering for him for the podcast for Saturday morning. So
okay.
He may be in Miami or Haiti or Venezuela. I don't know, but he's somewhere. We can play Where in the World is Adam Scher.
There you go.
That'll be a fun game. Let's go to catcher to start. Gary Sanchez does have a Q tag. He's been dealing with his legs. Supposedly his legs have been sore. He hasn't been feeling great in that department. He's 4,900 against Giolito here. Real Muto against Alcantara. Grandal gets Urias. Fegley, as part of this Oakland lineup, is 3,900. Would love to see him cheaper for some upside against Smiley in Texas. And then you get into the mix of the Ramoses and Yan Gomes and others at the backstop spot. But anybody stand out to you, at least as an early on potential play here?
Yeah, early on, it's not terrible. Chirinos against Wade LeBlanc. It's at Safeco. I'd rather it not be, but what are you going to do? Wilson Ramos is pretty nicely priced against Kyle Wright, and he's batting 5th in the order. So anytime you get a catcher batting in the middle, like one guy that I didn't like the matchup, I actually liked Kenta Maeda, didn't get great results, but hey, 3% owned, you'll take that any day of the week against the righty heavy lineup. Who was it? Yadier Molina ended up homering late in that game. It wasn't off Maeda, I don't believe, but he was $2,800 on DraftKings, and he was batting 5th, $2,800 at an already bad position. I mean, it just made too much sense to play him. You just play a guy that's going to see 4 plate appearances, maybe more, and isn't a terrible hitter. That's what I'm really looking for in a lot of these spots. It doesn't mean when there's a good matchup, you don't pay a little bit extra to get there. It just means that when you get those spots like Yadier Molina, you just take it because the position's been brutal to begin with. I do think Cervelli's nice against Corbin, and I would Corbin homer-wise has clearly been pretty susceptible this season. I got it. Pretty susceptible. 3 home runs last time out to the Mets. He's going to get strikeouts, but Cervelli with the platoon advantage is fine. And you have a catcher batting 3rd. Here's what I'm talking about with these price points, Dan. They're factoring the matchup in so heavily. Cervelli's 3,300 on DraftKings.
Yep.
Batting 3rd against the lefty. And while it might not be the best park, National Stadium is a better park than PNC. I think you have to take advantage of that when you can. And maybe Danny Jansen will see maybe 2 plate appearances against Yarbrough, assuming he's the long man. I have not looked. But Cervelli right now at that price just seems like the guy that makes the most sense.
Yeah, Jansen was the other name here at the cheap end of the pool that if you project him to bat 5th, then he gets a couple of bats against Yarbrough would stand out a bit to me. You also do have beef down here against J.A. Happ. Wellington Castillo is 3,200. Haven't seen where he's been batting in the lineup for the White Sox of late. I guess he's been batting 6th or 7th, depending on what lineup they run out. I wish Josh Fegley was 3,500. 3,900 feels like the high end of the pool for a number 9 batter. Yeah. So I think if I'm playing Fegley, I'm playing Fegley in a 9-1-2-3 stack or a 8-9-1-2 stack where I'm making the decision that I'm in on Oakland. Like this is where I'm going and this is what I'm doing. Semion's been hot, has some upside obviously from the right side of the dish against a lefty pitcher, but Fegley's been good, really good to start the year. And wonder if Oakland maybe shakes up the lineup or if they think he's better off at the bottom end, but has 3 home runs in the last 4 starts. He has double-digit DraftKings points in 5 of his last 5 starts. So clearly some upside here for Fegley if you believe in a number 9 batter in Texas. Haven't looked at the weather, but should be decent enough there at Globe Life Stadium. Let's move to first base next. Clay Bellinger. Oh, man, I did it. Cody Bellinger. I was a Yankee fan in the 90s. That's his dad. I'm old. Cody Bellinger is your highest priced first baseman here against Burns at 5,500. Rhys Hoskins against Alcantara. Pete Alonso has had a very solid start to the season for the New York Mets. He has a matchup with Kyle Wright. Then a Vogelbach. I assume we don't see Vogelbach here. I would guess that Encarnacion gets to start at first and they go to a different DH against Miley, but Encarnacion obviously stands out at 4,700. And Freddie Freeman at 4,600 against Wheeler in Atlanta. If Wheeler's, off, if he's throwing what he threw last time out, Freddie Freeman could have a field day at a cheaper price point than I would expect. What do you like at first base?
Well, there's Patrick Corbin, and then there's Corbin Burns.
Yep.
Corbin Burns, this is pretty, you'll appreciate this. This season, he's a 45% ground ball rate, 75% home run to fly ball rate. Now, obviously, that's going to come down a lot. But I also expect him to, even though he gets slightly above league average amount of ground balls, I expect him to give up some home runs. Last year, his home run to fly ball rate was also higher than league average. And he seems like someone here that is still figuring it out. And even though I would expect him to get some strikeouts, which he's definitely doing this season, and has always shown decent strikeout stuff, even coming up through the minors, but the home runs will probably continue to be a problem, especially in this matchup against the Dodgers. They just have so many good bats, especially from the left side of the plate. Burns is not really he's I can't think of the word. It's late. My brain's dead. Then he doesn't discriminate. We'll say this. He's allowed 3 home runs to lefties and to righties, but he's faced 20.
That's the right word. That's the right word.
Well, it is. It is. I had a different one in mind, though, is what I'm saying. But discriminate will do. He's faced 20 righties or lefties. He's allowed 7 hits and 3 home runs and 4 total extra base hits. He's walked them 4 times. And here's what's crazy. I think you'll appreciate this. So he's faced 20 lefties, 26 righties. Just guess his K rates against lefties and righties. It's still very early. I get that, but just take a guess.
I have no idea. Against so 2 different numbers one against lefties, one against righties.
Yes.
I have no good numbers here. 5% against lefties and 40% against righties.
Well, one thing's pretty amazing here. If you were playing the lottery, you would have at least gotten some money back if this were a Powerball. 5% even on lefty to get against lefties. Okay. Nice work. Nice work. Very nice.
How off am I on the other number, though?
Right. No, good work, man. Which, if you have 20 batters faced, that's 1 strikeout.
Right.
Get this. His K rate versus righties is 65.4%. He has struck out 17 of the 26 righties he's faced, Dan.
Wow.
So lefties, he's getting nothing. No missed, no swings. Actually has a negative 15% K minus BB rate. Okay, negative 15. He has not walked a single righty. So if this were a super righty heavy lineup, I'd actually be interested in Burns. I get it's still early, but those numbers are dramatic no matter how you look at it. 17 of 26 and 1 of 20, right? That's wild. He also, get this, last year, Corbin Burns faced 100 righties, 52 lefties. Again, not a big sample, but check this out. 28% K rate versus righties, 13% K rate against lefties. He's clearly been wet, and small sample, but a huge dramatic difference there. Yep. You're going to have to go up against Jock Peterson, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy. If Verdugo's in the lineup, I mean, there are a lot of lefties. I actually think your Dodgers stack could be really interesting here. And Muncy, of course, and Bellinger stand out to me as 2 really, really strong plays.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to, what I'm looking at on my phone over here is Eno Saris, who, when you and I hosted a serious show together, actually talked to us after I forget, it was a Dodgers-Giants game. I think it was Kershaw, Madison Bumgarner. We had him on as he was walking to his car. We had him on the show. But I
remember.
He has an Athletic article, and yes, you have to pay for it, but about Chris Paddock. So I'm trying to track down some information here, not to share it on here, but about one pitch that Paddock is throwing that is apparently similar to Greg Maddox's changeup, which when you make that comparison, I'm all on board to understand more about exactly what you're saying. And Paddock, obviously, on this slate. So I was trying to track it down as we talk here. But I think Bellinger makes a ton of sense, and I didn't know Burns's numbers. Burns's numbers were that drastic in how he's approached this season to start. First base is typically pretty deep. You have Moreland against Hess, stands out. Freeman, I mentioned, against Wheeler. If Wheeler's off, you have some giant upside. We've talked about SunTrust and lefty power bats in the past. What do you got here beyond the top end? Anybody stand out as guys you'll do a little bit more research on?
So you're still on first base?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, a couple. Those guys that I mentioned out of the gate are ones that I really like, but Ryan Healy is perfectly fine here with the platoon advantage. Matt Adams, if he's in the lineup, I don't doubt he will be, so no real reason to even discuss that. But if he is, Matt Adams is priced really, really nicely. Who else? I obviously think the Yankee bats are going to be really popular, Dan, and Lucas Giolito can still get blown up. So Luke Voigt and Greg Bird and those first basemen for the Yankees are still very much in play. I like both sides of this game. Mitch Moreland against David Hess, a bit pricey though. I don't know if I want to go there. And Mark Canha, depending on where he's batting, but against Drew Smiley at Globe Life Park, that's another nice one. And you already mentioned Encarnacion.
Let's talk second baseman next. You have Wade LeBlanc against the Houston Astros here. Clearly a fairly heavy or right-handed lineup that can put up some gigantic stats pretty quickly. LeBlanc has gone 2-0 to start the year, had a very solid outing last time out, 6 Ks, just 1 walk, 102 pitches. So we know there's length to what he is doing. But this would seem like a high-end spot for the Houston Astros. Do you have a team total for the Astros on this slate? I don't have that pulled up as of right now.
Yeah, it is 5.
5. Okay, so a higher end for this slate. Altuve, clearly at 4,700, has gigantic upside. You have a guy like Chad Pinder against Smiley in this matchup in Texas at 4,400. Ozzie Albies, fresh off a contract extension, is batting against Zach Wheeler. Again, I think if you're betting on a Wheeler blow-up, you might be disappointed. It could be a very solid outing for him, but the lefty bats in SunTrust, a stack there wouldn't surprise me too much. What second baseman do you like?
Yeah, speaking of lefty second baseman in SunTrust, I think Robinson Cano against Wright is nice. SunTrust is a really lefty-friendly park for hitters, and Cano, you're going to get him pretty cheap. Muncie's eligible here, but we already talked about him. Jurickson Profar batting from the right side against Drew Smiley. Great park for him going to Globe Life. Second base really is not bad. You mentioned Altuve already, and his price is down from what you would expect it to be in a spot like this.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure, right? Kike Hernandez, if you're stacking the Dodgers, obviously, sure. But from what we've seen, I do like the lefties a lot more. Chad Pinder should bat middle of the lineup against Smiley with the platoon advantage. I don't know how you don't like that. He's looked pretty good, too. And he's actually proving that he's got some pop in that bat, which is what you want to see regardless of where he's priced. Those are the guys I'd be targeting out of the gate pretty early, Dan. Aside from that, there's a few here and there, but I think those are the guys you probably want to stick with.
Yeah, quickly here, Oakland and Houston stacks are starting to make themselves very well known to me as we do this podcast, as we walk through. But yes. We'll see exactly.
Oakland has not been disappointing.
No, we'll see where we end up. But again, first look, try to be transparent about that. What we see as we roll through, we do research beforehand, but a lot of stuff pops out as we talk. And then obviously Dave has the deep dive right up over there on Awesemo.com. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD to get yourself 50% off your first month at the website, or tune in always to SiriusXM Fantasy Radio, Sirius 210 XM 87. Dave every Saturday and Sunday, sometimes joined by one Manny Laura as they talk the world of sports over there on Sirius XM Fantasy. Third base, Rendon's been awesome. You know, he's a guy after a contract, and I'm not trying to equate the two, but he has been fan-effing-tastic to start the year, 1371 OPS. Jose Ramirez has been the exact opposite. He has been dreadful to start the year for the Cleveland Indians. He has a 352 OPS. Just that's amazing, just the contrast between those two players. But they're only separated by $400 on DraftKings for this slate. I'm really going to end up with Keller and Giolito as my highest owned pitchers. It's going to be effing fantastic on this slate. But
oh man, that'll be fun. Keller scares me because the strikeouts, but
totally. Give me 6 strikeouts in 7 innings, and I think.
Oh, I mean, if you got that, you'd be really, really happy about it.
So Chapman, I think we'll both be on here at 4,600. I'm saying here a lot this episode. I apologize for that. Machado, Arenado against Pomeranz. I know we talked about Pomeranz in San Francisco. This would seem like a spot where Pomeranz wins the matchup, but Arenado has upside anywhere. Maikel Franco batting 10th in the lineup is doing amazing things on the season. This is a game in Miami, though, and against a righty, probably not the highest upside spot. What third baseman do you like best? Is it going back to the Chapmans and Bregmans of the world, or do you see other third basemen that you like better?
If Bregman's in the lineup, I definitely like him. You know, Wade LeBlanc over the past few seasons, and really for his career, 1.35 home runs per 9 to righties last year, but the strikeouts against righties are negligible. I mean, always under 20% every season. And the ground ball rate, it's not like he gets a lot of ground balls. Below league average, 36%. I really like Bregman here and the righties for this Houston team, Houston stack in general. I think you got to keep rolling with Matt Chapman against Smiley too. Smiley's not as bad a pitcher as people make him out to be, but he's absolutely prone to getting hammered in spots like this in this matchup, which is, you know, really tough. You know, he's he has a 6.1% swinging strike rate thus far in the season. And that's through his first 2 starts where he's failed to get through 4 innings in both of them. And I just don't know how you don't like Matt Chapman and the righties for Oakland. They're just really in favorable spots. And Smiley will give up power. You know, 2 home runs and only limited opportunities to righties this year. You go back to the last year he pitched at the major league level, 2016, 1.61 home runs per 9. He allowed 32 home runs on the season in 175 innings. So that's a lot of home runs, Dan. Ramirez, if he was cheaper, I think it'd be a lot easier to say, okay, you know, I'll bet on him being better than he's played. But at that price, you don't really need to do that because you could just go to Alex Bregman and, assuming he's in the lineup, and feel better about it. The top of the position has plenty. Manny Machado, I have no issues with it. Chase Field, but Chapman and Bregman would definitely be the 2 guys I prefer most. And then, oh, by the way, Muncy doesn't have second base eligibility. I was looking at something that had it incorrectly there. First, third base, unless, let's see, let's make sure there's no changes. No, yes, okay. So it must have just changed overnight. He's first and second base now. First and second base. Yep.
That's fun. I mean, that from a MPE, and I know it's more in the NBA world, but that changes some things when you talk about a stack and exactly how you can make those pieces work for the Dodgers lineup. Especially
because you've got Kike Hernandez at second base and also outfield. So then you could, you know, Bellinger at first, at second, Muncy, Turner at third, and then, you know, in the outfield, you can do whatever you want. Seager at short. Not saying you can play all of them, but you can make a ton of variations with this stack for sure. Oh, and by the way, he'll probably bat down in the order. He will. But Tyler White absolutely destroys left-handed pitching. He's $3,600 on DraftKings. To me, that's a really solid price, and Houston should be popular, but my bet is the bottom of the order. Guys like Tyler White will go overlooked, even though the pop that he has with the platoon advantage is really significant.
Always a fan, and doesn't always work out, but of going down the lineup, getting outside the 1, 2, 3, 4, and getting to your 5, 6, 7, 8 stacks, or even your 8, 9, 1, 2 stacks to try to differentiate a little bit in plus matchups for certain lineups. Again, Chapman probably will be where I land most of all on his career. Smiley with a 4.30 xFIP against right-handed batters, 1.37 home runs per 9 allowed. The K- walk ratio is 10 percentage points off his K- walk to lefties. It's all numbers point to this being another upside spot for the Oakland Athletics. For shortstops, you have
real quick. I just wanted to point out that Arenado is only 4,500.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's at Oracle, formerly known as AT&T, but he is incredible against opposite-handed pitching. You prefer him in Coors, of course, but the guy has yet to hit a home run on the season. I wouldn't be surprised if that home run comes today, regardless of the venue. Nolan Arenado is just too good to stay quiet, and that's a really dirt cheap price point given his skill set.
Makes sense to me, and I think that I won't go there this early on. I will say I most likely will not have any Arenado in probably about the 5 to 7 lineups I build for a 12 game slate, but I don't disagree with it at that price point and with the upside that he can clearly have on any given slate. We look at shortstop next, and maybe a position where we can save a bit. At the top end, it's Mondesi and Semien over 4K, and everybody else is below here from making sure I honestly am refreshing my DraftKings to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. But Mondesi's 4,500, Semien 4,200, perfectly reasonably priced here against Smiley in Texas. Then everybody else is sub 4K. I have to have something checked off incorrectly. There it is. That's what I do. All right. So I had a letter in there. So Bregman is 4,700. Feel so much better about this. Torres 46, Anderson 46, and then we go on from there. I apologize. It all makes sense now. But what do you got at shortstop?
Well, I think that we have to start with Xander Bogaerts against David Hess. In Fenway, the power here is great. Bogaerts, to me, especially 4,400 on DraftKings, is really, really friendly. I like that a lot. I'll go back to, again, talking about Gleyber Torres. Of course, the Yankees can put up strong numbers against Giolito. You're going to have to pay for them, but they're there, and they will be popular. They also have a high total. I'll throw Story out there like Arenado. I'm not really suggesting a Rocky stack here, but I don't mind either as one-offs because both of them are cheaper than, they're going to be for most of the season. Story at $4,400. I have no issues with that. Semien should be leading off against the left-handed Smiley. That's nice. Oakland's just hitting so well that you want to keep riding that wave until it crashes, and you're getting good matchups to boot. It's not really like these are terrible spots and you're just hoping that it continues. No, these are great spots and a great park. How about Corey Seager as well, though, Dan? Let me see if Seager's still dirt cheap on FanDuel. He is $3,200. So if that hamstring doesn't keep him sidelined, he is another Dodger bat that I'm going to have quite a bit of interest in. These lefties, after seeing these Corbin Burns numbers, small sample or not, they're staggering.
Right there with you, and I would throw Correa into the mix here at 4,300 against LeBlanc in Safeco, and I know it's not the best hitter's park, but I could see some upside. Tim Beckham has a matchup with Miley on the other side of that one at 4,200. Feels like shortstop pricing is pretty cheap. I know I got it wrong at the top here, but between Semien, Beckham, and Correa, see a good deal of upside. You throw in Seager into the mix if healthy at 4K flat, and you have a ton going right at shortstop. Outfield, let's close it out here.
Correa on FanDuel is priced up from what he was. If you remember, he was like 3,400 for the whole season, pretty much the whole 2 weeks of the season, I should say. 4K is getting up there, but 43, I'm fine with it. 43 on DraftKings is also pretty appealing. Shortstop's actually really nice. Go ahead.
Yep, I completely agree that it's a position that maybe the pricing is a little softer than I expected when I clicked in. Outfield, you mentioned Bellinger at first base, but he's eligible here at outfield at 5,500. Betts against Hess stands out. Harper against Alcantara has upside. And then you get into the likes of an Aaron Judge. If you're going to stack the Yankees, he's going to be part of that stack. JD Martinez, if you're going to stack the Red Sox, he's going to be part of that stack. Gallo gets Fires, gigantic upside there. Chris Davis against Smiley, gigantic upside there. And then you talk about the mix of Michael Conforto here at 4,700. All amazing plays at the top end of outfield. Who are some of your favorites?
Chris Davis has 2 home runs in 2 straight games. And now you're getting him in this matchup. He's going to cost you, but not that much. Like, he's still under 5K on DraftKings against Smiley at Globe Life. Happy to load up on that. I'll keep this trend going against Burns too. Jock Peterson leading off at 4,400, another strong price point. Stephen Piscotty is batting in a 3-hole against Smiley as well. The Oakland stack should still very much be in play here. And JD Martinez and Mookie Betts, of course, against David Hess. Let's not forget about them. Brandon Nimmo's striking out a lot, but he's got right at SunTrust Park, so a nice little park shift there, especially for lefties. I'll throw in Aaron Judge because, I'll say it for the 18th time. Giolito could be very good. Giolito could be very bad. Those are the guys that I really like here. You can play Bellinger at the position. Benintendi against David Hess with that platoon advantage is also really appealing. I mean, like you said, the list goes on. There's no way we can get to everybody. But, Conforto, if you wanted to, against Wright. I don't mind the Mets stack here, actually. There's just really, really a lot of good quality outfielders batting towards the top of their lineup and still giving you price points that are hard to ignore.
Yep. And I would throw, we didn't talk much about them, and I haven't dove into numbers completely, but some of these righty bats from the Chicago White Sox, I mentioned Tim Anderson, but I feel like Moncada and Abreu and those pieces could be intriguing against J.A. Happ. Not a ton in the outfield. Jimenez is batting 6th or 7th, but could see some upside there from this White Sox lineup against J.A. Happ if he doesn't have the right stuff going. Dave, you can find on Twitter at Lofty_D, Loughy. Yeah, it's been a while. Loughy_D. That I screwed it up. Not since I've said this, but Loughy_D. Find me at Dan Stravit. Of course, it's at Osmo_com. This is known as the DFS Early Bird. You can find us on the iTunes. You can find us on YouTube.
DFS early.
Yeah, I was gonna make that comment and then figured I'd let it go. But if we're calling people out, yeah, let's get that right. And then we are with you tomorrow morning, which is Saturday morning. It's gonna be myself and EMAC. So you'll get that bright and early Saturday morning, probably late Friday night, to be quite honest. I'm off all of next week. I'm off to vacation with the family. We're going to Universal Studios, Florida.
Enjoy yourself.
The oldest is obsessed with Harry Potter, so we're surprising her with this trip. We haven't told the kids yet. So Sunday morning, I'm going to wake up, going to tell them they're flying, and then my middle kid's going to freak out because she has this weird thing about flying, and it's going to be awesome. So I'll share
that's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
I appreciate it, and then we'll be back the following week, but you get Dave, Adam, and EMAC throughout the way. So with all that said, best of luck on this Friday slate. Find us in Slack chat. Find us on Twitter. Find us by signing up for Osmo.com using that promo code EARLYBIRD. You've been listening to the DFS Early Bird presented by Osmo.com.